the best it's gonna be. Oh God. Hello everyone, it is April. I am late getting my April wrap up to you, and that is because I had planned to film this yesterday, but I felt like crap. I got my first shot of the vaccine, AstraZeneca. I got it on my 40th birthday. Felt amazing that day. Didn't feel so hot yesterday. Not horrendous, just felt like the flu. And you know, all yesterday I just kept thinking how grateful I was that I didn't have COVID. I was just dealing with some side effects that are really not a big deal from the shot. In any case, I did not feel like primping and getting all dressed up. I felt like lazing around yesterday. So you guys are getting my April wrap up a little later in the month, and I apologize for that, but life. So I attempted to read 11 books in April. I only completed 9. So we're gonna go from like DNFs to the bottom and go all the way to the top, the tippy top, so we end on a high. Let's dive right in. The first book that I sadly DNF'd was Once Upon a River. Now, Diane Setterfield wrote The 13th Tale, which I adored. And so I did kind of assume that I was going to adore this book. I mean, it is also a beautiful cover, but sadly, I just could not connect with this. This is the story of a very small little village. And one day at a local pub, a man walks in the door with a dead little girl in his arms. And she eventually comes back to life, and all sorts of people from the village are trying to claim her as their own. What I struggled with in this book is there were so many characters. I could not keep track of the characters, and because I couldn't keep track of the characters, I didn't care about any of the characters. And there was this repeated line that was like something was about to happen, but I didn't even care what that something was. I didn't care enough about the mystery because it felt like we were repeatedly being introduced to the mystery by all of these characters, and I just wanted to like get to the bottom of what was going on with this little girl. And I just gave up. I gave up, guys. I did. The other book that I DNF'd, you guys probably saw in a reading vlog that I did a little earlier in the month, and that was The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I really thought that I was going to love this book. It is fantasy. I think high fantasy would people describe it as. And this is about a girl who goes to a military school. She works really hard to get into the school, and she learns the art of war, and then she's thrown into a war, the Poppy War. And I'm telling you, I got really far into this book. I think I got 300 pages in, which is a long way to go and then to just give up. But I did. So I really enjoyed the first half of the book, which followed her, Rin, getting into the school and being at the school and learning about her own power. And I loved all of that. As soon as it switched over to the Poppy War and the war efforts and what was going on with countries, you know, competing with one another, I found it a jarring transition. In fact, I didn't feel like there was any transition from the school to the war. I felt like all of the people who were important during her school days just suddenly didn't seem very important later. I really lost interest, and so I decided to give up. And that means that I'm giving up on the whole series as well. And that's okay. You know, you gotta pick your battles. Now we're moving on to the books that I did finally finish. Unfortunately, I finished Every Last Fear by Alex Finlay. I gave this 1 star. Honestly, it's like between a 1 and a 2 star. I really didn't care for this book. Every Last Fear is a thriller that follows a young man who discovers that his entire family, except for his brother, are killed very suddenly while they're on vacation. Now, the police have ruled it as an accidental death, but the police are now looking into it, and I think the FBI is looking into it, and they're going, oh, we actually think that they might have been murdered. And this is not the first time that tragedy has struck this family. His brother is currently in jail for having killed his girlfriend. Did he do it? Did he not do it? You find out through this book. And truthfully, I felt like this did nothing new in the thriller genre. It was a bit of a slog to get through for me, even though it's really not long, like 350 pages. And I didn't care for the writing. The writing just, there was something about it that just was off to me. Honestly, I probably could have given this 2 stars, but I got to the end of it and I was like, I wish I hadn't read that book. So yeah, I don't have any 2 stars to share with you. We're moving into a 3-star, and then it's all uphill from there. So The Lost Village is next by Camilla Sten. This is a story about a documentary filmmaking crew who go to this lost village to create a documentary. Now, her own grandmother was from this village, and she did move away from the village when she grew up, but the rest of her family was still there, and they all vanished without a trace. So the only 2 people that were left behind was a woman who was found stoned to death in the town square, and also a baby who was left there and was saved. And you go back and forth in time. You read from the grandmother's perspective, writing to her sister. So that you read these 2 sister stories. And then you also go forwards in time and you follow this documentary crew going around this lost village. I will say it was incredibly atmospheric, and I read it at the perfect time because this takes place for the most part in the early spring. So the ground is still cold, like there's still a nip in the air. But I will say that I was underwhelmed by the character development and character differentiation. So all of these characters who are creating this documentary, they all very much seem to know each other and also really care about each other, but you don't get a lot of information about their backstory. And so all sorts of things are happening to these characters and you don't care about it, but they do. It's very strange. It was really, really weird to read about characters who really cared about each other and you were just like, why? So I feel mixed things about this. It was definitely worth a read, I would say, but I wasn't blown away. Okay, and now we are moving into some 4-star reads. I read some really amazing books. I finally read Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. I listened to this on audio and it was lovely and wonderful and made me go, why am I always so afraid of reading classics? I don't know, but I want to change that. I want to read more classics. So Wives and Daughters follows a young woman named Molly. Her father, it's really just her and her father. Her mother died when she was quite young, and her father has decided to remarry. And he remarries this woman who is a little over the top, a lot manipulative. And she is a widow herself. She has a young daughter as well. The daughter has a lot of drama that surrounds her, specifically when it comes to men. She has a lot of affairs that are a little bit scandalous for this time, and Molly is always finding herself stuck in the middle of it. She really, really loves Cynthia a lot, and so she's always like ready to spring into action and protect her, her new sister. And I liked the interaction between the 2 women, or the 2 girls, I guess I would say. And there's some romancy bits in here. And for some reason, I don't really mind romance when it comes to classic books. But I mind it for the most part. in contemporary work. What does that mean? It's very strange. But I did enjoy this. I would say if you are a fan of Jane Austen, you should definitely pick up Elizabeth Gaskell. And I will be picking up more of her work, that's for sure. The next book I read was The Haunting of Ashburn House. This I also gave 4 stars. I just really enjoyed this. This was my first Darcy Coates, the first of many. I am about to film a haul video after I finish filming this, and there are a lot of Darcy Coates books in there. I was kindly sent this as well as a few others. This was my first, and it's such a comforting read in a weird, creepy way. So you guys know I really enjoy haunted house stories, and this just had all of the perfect classic haunted house vibes where things move in the night. And I just loved every second of reading this. So in this book, we follow a woman who is very much down on her luck. She has no money at all. And she luckily has inherited Ashburn House after her, is it her great grandmother or her great aunt? I can't remember. Gives her the house. She goes to the house and she finds all of these strange words scrawled all around the house, like no mirrors, and there aren't any mirrors, and is it Friday, light the candle, and all of these weird messages and strange things start happening to her, and she really has no options. Ashburn House is in the middle of slightly nowhere, and the town is a little bit of a hike away. She has no phone. She has often no power. It was creepy in the best of ways, and it did have scary parts too that I did get a little scared of reading. So I can't wait to read more Darcy Coates because she has an enormous backlist. She's coming out with 2 books this year, and so I'm excited. I gave this 4 stars. I also read this in a vlog, so if you want to go and watch the vlog of me reading this and the next book, yeah, I will link that in the description box below. So the next book is another 4-star read. This is The Last House on Needless Street. Now, this is a very confusing story, and it's meant to be confusing. It's kind of got an Ian Reid kind of vibe. He wrote I'm Thinking of Ending Things and Foe, and both of those stories are a bit confusing until the end. And again, you have the same kind of thing here. This follows a man named Ted, his daughter, and his cat, and they all live in the last house on Needless Street. And this house backs onto a wooded area. You also follow a young woman whose little sister vanished and was taken and hasn't been found, and she is trying to find her little sister, and it's a bit creepy for a good long while. It does end up all making sense at the end. I really can't tell you much because I will spoil so much, and it's really worth all of those reveals as you go through the book. Now, I will say the only reason that I didn't give it 5 stars is I found it a little too long. Maybe like 50 to 75 pages too long. I wished that it was shorter, just because when you are in the dark for so long reading a book, I have found that the shorter the better, so that it keeps your interest, it keeps you reading, keeps you flipping the pages. And that's why I love Ian Reid so much, is because his books are really confusing but super short, and you get to the end, you're like, oh, I want to read it all over again. And I think I will want to read this all over again. I really, really enjoyed this one as well. So The Last House on Needless Street, 4 stars. Another 4-star read that oh my goodness, I think I've vlogged so many things, is Shadow and Bone. I finally read this. Another fantasy. Luckily, I did well with this one. This follows Alina, and she lives in a world in which people have to cross the shadow fold to like get goods and all of these things. And when you cross it, there are these monsters that often will attack these ships and people die. And she is a soldier crossing, and when she crosses, they are attacked. And then suddenly she finds from within herself this power that she had no idea that she had, which makes her a Grisha. And she is not only a Grisha, but one of the most powerful Grisha. And you follow her learning about her power and also training to become a Grisha. And you follow her with the head of the Grisha and his very big interest in her particular power. I really thought this was fun. It was so fast paced. There are romancy elements in here, but I didn't really mind them because they didn't seem like the main focus of the book, which was good. So I really enjoyed it, and I'll definitely continue along with the series. I did start watching the series on Netflix, and I just felt kind of meh about it, and I'm wondering if I just need to give myself a little bit of time. Maybe I'm all like fantasied out for a while because I don't read a ton of fantasy and I don't watch a ton of fantasy. So I'm going to try that again because my hope is to essentially pick the books up as they're released on Netflix. So I'll wait until the next season of this Grishaverse universe is going to come out on Netflix, and then I'll read the next in the series, which I think is called Siege and Storm. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. So 4 stars for that. And then I have 2 5-star reads. The first was the book that we read over on my Patreon book club. I'm so glad that we read Know My Name by Chanel Miller. This is a nonfiction book by Chanel Miller, who was raped by Brock Turner. She was known for months and months as Emily Doe, and she decided to press charges against Brock Turner, and you follow her story of learning that she was raped because she was unconscious, and learning about the rape itself, going through the process of pressing charges and working with police, and also going through the court system and, you know, dealing with the media who are not always nice, and all of the comments that she got about the rape. And this book was so important to me. First, I will say that I listened to this on audio, and I so highly recommend that. It is narrated by Chanel, and I just think she's done something so selfless in writing this book. She created a path for women who have been raped to learn about the process of what it's like to be, assaulted in this way and try to prosecute. It is not easy, and she describes how hard it is. And I think that's important for women to understand, that it's not easy, but it doesn't mean that you weren't raped, that you don't deserve justice. It also helped me realize, what is rape? I don't think I fully realized what rape fully was until I read this book, and that, if you get really, really drunk, if you are falling down, if you are falling off of chairs, you're stumbling around, if you can't remember things, and someone takes advantage of you in that moment and sexually assaults you, that is rape. That is rape, plain and simple. And for years, I feel like it hasn't been contemplated in that way. And it was very eye-opening to me, and actually quite, not traumatic, but it brought a lot of stuff up for myself that I won't get into here, but one of the most important books I've ever read. And I feel kind of sad because I had filmed my 40 best books I've ever read for my 40th birthday, which I'll link in the description box below if you haven't seen that. And I hadn't finished this book at that point, and this would have been on it. So 41. Amazing. I'm so grateful to Chanel Miller. Love that woman. Okay, so next is my new favorite thriller of all time. Oh my gosh, Beneath the Skin by Nikki French. So this is an older book by the husband and wife duo, and it is terrifying and amazing. So Beneath the Skin follows 3 women. They're incredibly different women. They really have nothing in common except for the fact that they are being stalked. They're getting these very strange letters in the mail. The letters in some ways are very adoring. They're talking about how beautiful these women are. And then they end with, but I'm going to kill you. You're going to die by the end of whatever it is, like next month or what have you. And you follow each of the women. You follow their interaction with the police, trying to protect them. I was rooting for each and every one of these women, even though I didn't always like each woman. Some of them I liked more than others, but you still are very much rooting for them all. I haven't read a ton of books about stalking, and I think this is probably the first that really made me feel like, oh my goodness, what would that be like? Maybe other than I'll Be Gone in the Dark, that kind of gave me similar vibes where I didn't really want to be alone because it made me feel really uncomfortable, but it was so well done. And this really is also about the male gaze, and I just thought it was brilliant, and it is now my favorite thriller book of all time. Here we are. So those are all of the books that I read in April. I would love to know in the comments below what the best book that you read in April was. I hope you read some really amazing 5-star reads, and I will talk with you very soon. Bye, guys.